trying to experiment. Jeez, I look like a homeless bum. No wonder nobody sits next to me on the subway. All right, this is my friend Pete. Pete and I've known Pete since, geez, when did I meet you? In like 90, right before I moved to Albuquerque, I met you.
Allison and I were in Blue Point, so yeah.
Yes.
Early mid '90s.
Yeah, I
Mid.
went to school with Allison, Pete's wife, and then when they got married, I met them. Allison's been a friend of mine geez, since third grade, since longer than I can remember, because I can't remember last week. And then became friends with Pete. Pete's as much as I'm a comic book guy, Pete's a music guy. So maybe someday I'll be on his channel talking about rock and roll and sitting there with a dumbfounded look. But Pete's my rock and roll mentor. Although I tried to showcase my record collection one day and I got like 0 views, so I never finished. But anyway, enough. I'm already rambling. So I thought this would be a fun thing to try. I'm gonna flip over the screen now, and we're gonna talk about this. This is the Fantastic Four annual number 12. Let's check this out. This is 1977, and you can see this is well beat up. This is my actual copy that I bought. Geez, I don't even remember where I bought this. 1977. So this was the early days of comic book collecting. And I remember my friend Sean had this, and I was like so jealous that he had it. And back then, there was no comic book stores, right? Where did you get your comics?
Yeah, I mean that's such a great point. I was thinking about that. We would go to stationery stores,
Yep.
and I
Tell everybody what a
remember,
stationery store is. Nobody believes me.
they were selling cigarettes, gum, and nudie magazines,
Yep.
and they'd have one spinner rack basically, you know, with comics. And I went to this really tiny place about a block from my house, and you got what you got. I mean, if there was just Marvel, maybe that's all he carried, or he maybe carried 5 titles of Marvel and 2 DC, and that was it.
Do you remember the name of the store?
I wish I no,
Yeah.
I do not. I could tell you I mean, I could close my eyes and tell you.
You could describe it, right?
I
You
grew up
could.
in Astoria, Queens.
Okay.
This was on Ditmars Boulevard, between 38th and 37th Street, or something like that.
By
If
that
anybody knows,
Olympia's restaurant.
if anybody knows Astoria, Queens, and it was a little hole in a wall. I mean, it really was a tiny.
Well, you could
You
tell
could.
by the way this song goes. Astoria Queens rules. Come on, that's a rock and roll reference. You get that, right? Murphy's Law.
Well, that's right. So you couldn't fit more than 5 people in this place at one time.
Okay.
Is really what my memory of it, and that's where I would first bought an absolutely Fantastic Four 1977. That was when that is right prime time for me first picking up comics.
Yeah, I probably got this in Howie's. I keep talking about Howie's. If you watch a lot of my videos, he was just an old kind man, and guy had everything: toys, oak tag. There's another blast from the past. People probably don't even know what oak tag is
Okay,
anymore.
yeah, right.
Ruler, like art supplies, cards, medicine, cigarettes.
Stationery store,
Like you
right?
said, nudie magazines and everything.
Yeah.
And in the corner, he didn't have a spinner rack, but he had like an alcove, like almost like a church confessional booth, just filled with comics. And I don't think this guy ever returned, because remember back then comics were returnable.
Right.
And that's what I keep. This doesn't have it. But if you ever see the little color stripe on the top of the comic, that's to show you what month. They would get a sheet of paper, and it would say all. Hey John. Hey Dave. Oh David. Hey David's one of my board game guys. We just played War of the Ring a couple of times when I was on furlough. Good to see you, Dave. Thanks for showing up. And you'd get like a color guide. So purple returned in October, red, whatever. But he never returned them. I think the guy was like 900 years old. He was immortal, and you just go there. And I found this like months after it came out, so it should have been returned. And I love this. Oh god, getting an annual. For those of you who do not know, I always try to treat every video as if it's they're brand new. An annual came out once a year, hence the name annual, and they usually came out in the summer because the theory was kids were buying more comic books in the summer, and they were at this point in time. Yeah, great. Yeah, man, Fantastic Four fun. Yeah, this was great. At this time, an annual was an event. You looked forward to them like they weren't filler. You're gonna see this was an event. So let's just talk about the cover for a second. So this cover is why can't I think of the cover artist? Geez, that's gonna drive me crazy. It'll come to me in a second. John Buscema. Yeah, that's why I was looking at, because the the Marvel art book. John Buscema and Joe Sinnott and Irv Watanabe. I can never say his name. Watanabe. And the credits aren't there. I actually had to look it up. But I love the Joe Sinnott. Joe Sinnott was the Fantastic Four's like house edit inker at this time. So let's take a look at this.
That's a great cover. It
Yeah,
really
isn't
is.
that great?
It's a great cover.
Jeff, that definitely John Buscema. And you know what's funny? Because at this time, when I was a kid, this was just Marvel art. Like I didn't know the guys' names, I didn't know the writers. So like
Right.
Jack Kirby, John Buscema, you know, Steve Ditko, I'd always recognize because I didn't like Steve Ditko at this point. But like John Romita, these guys all blended into each other. Well, sometimes in my memory, I'll assign the wrong name to an art. So when I saw this, when I was thinking about this in my mind, it was Kirby and Sinnott, but now I see it's Joe Sin. You know,
The
them at
the other thing about annuals, John, is they were always cost more, right? So
yes, yes,
if you were a kid who was normally used to paying, let's say at this time, I don't know, 30 cents
yeah,
for
30. I'm going to say 30 cents.
so this was like, I don't have,
Well, here, this is 1975, and this was 25 cents. So I'm going to say 30 cents at this point.
yeah, I mean, I know we sound like we're from the 1920s when we
Yeah, I
say
know.
these things, but the truth of the matter is,
I only had a
you get home.
farthing in my pocket. I don't even know what a farthing is, but it sounds old fashioned.
So, it's like, oh, wow, 60 cents. I guess I can afford this.
Right. Oh, yeah, and you saved up for it.
Right,
And at this time, I always tell this story, and Alison probably remember because we went to the same grammar school. But I would go to school. My mom would give me $1 every day, and that was for lunch. And I remember vividly, a pizza was 25 cents,
right,
and the chocolate milk was 15 cents. So that was 40 cents. So I would have 60 cents. So I would usually get either like two comic books a day or an annual, and that was
right.
my comic. So I would like, you know, save my change and buy a comic book one a day. Every
And
day I went to the store.
sometimes you would skip lunch, so you keep the dollar
Oh,
so
I,
you could
I
buy
never
like
skip lunch,
four.
Pete.
Well, like you try and scrimp so you because if there was an annual, you needed 60, not 40.
Well,
You know what
I
I'm
didn't know when. Yeah, like I didn't know. Like I'm sure people who are older than me. I was 9 years old when this came out. I'm sure
saying?
the people who are older than me, like they knew the schedules, they knew it was coming. To me, it was always a surprise. An annual came out. I didn't know. Or
Yeah,
sometimes I wouldn't know until, like I said, my friend Sean had this for a couple of months before.
right.
I, there was no like guides, there was no internet. It was kind of just like surprise. And then some of the stores, if say like Master of Kung Fu didn't sell in your area, the distributors wouldn't. They would cut down on it. So
Okay.
I like certain comics I never saw as a kid, like Master of Kung Fu.
Oh yeah.
Defenders
Oh,
was like yeah, there's this Defenders comics. Who we'd be on the lookout. Ghost Rider, I don't know, maybe because I lived right next to the church, but there was no Ghost Rider or anything. But Avengers, Fantastic Four,
a very
and
limited. This
yeah,
stationery store, like I said, my memory of that's where I first bought comics. It was super limited. If you had Spider Man, Fantastic Four, and maybe a Batman, maybe a Superman, that was it.
yeah. Did you ever
You
get any of these? The Fun Factory? Did you ever send away for anything?
I think I one time I actually, I think one time I might have actually sent away for Sea Monkeys.
Oh no, you got screwed with
It
you
was
got
just,
smelly brine shrimp.
it was dust.
Yeah,
It's basically, he basically sent you an envelope of dust.
yeah, it was brine shrimp eggs that my friend Mike got them, and you put them in the water, and you had to like treat the water, and
Yeah, it
you
did
didn't know what you
nothing.
were doing, so it was just a waste. And it just stunk. I just remember his house
And then
just stunk because
your mother and your father just laughed at you or
yeah,
looked at you like
and then they
you
flushed it
really
down the
are
toilet.
you really are an idiot. Like that. It's confirmed.
I wanted this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm joking around thinking like, wouldn't it be like a funny, humorous comic? Yeah, now somebody's gonna take my idea, but a little kid sends away for all of this stuff, and he becomes a superhero. Like this gives him strength. This really is X-ray vision.
Well,
He
that's a
does
very
find
good
like a
idea.
ghost that obeys his commands. And he becomes like a little gadget superhero. I think that
Yeah,
would be
it's a good
kind of
idea.
fun. All right, so here we got the splash page. All right, look at that. So let's go to the credits. We got Marv Wolfman. I guess I'm on a Marv Wolfman kick, but Marv Wolfman was the writer of the new Teen Titans. I just showcased that the other day. Marv Wolfman, legend. There's like a few writers that I put on a pedestal, and I've been seeing in my comments to my video about the X-Men the other day. I don't dislike Chris Claremont. I love Chris Claremont. Now here, I'm going to say I'm going to put Chris Claremont and Marv Wolfman on like a pedestal of two people that throughout the '70s they elevated the writing of comic books. People sending me messages right now. Can you? I hope you can't hear the phone going making noises, but I love Marv Wolfman. I love Chris Claremont. And I know I just said how much I love Chris Claremont, but it sounds like I'm going to be mean. But I think Chris Claremont's greatest achievement was training John Byrne how to write. And I'm sure John Byrne would, Chris Claremont and John Byrne wouldn't like that comment, but that's the way I feel. All right, let's look at this. Bob Hall and Keith Pollard. Bob Hall is, I love Bob Hall's artwork. Just look at just clean Marvel artwork. And Keith Pollard, I don't know if this is the beginning of his career, but Keith Pollard went on to do a run of Thor. That now I got to break out those Thors. Keith Pollard is awesome. If did were you ever into Thor comics around this time?
No,
No, he did a
no.
run with around Thor 300, and I started collecting Thor around 186, and
So the
he did
Thor
when
that the
when
Thor
the
that you, I'm sorry,
go
the
ahead, go
Thor
ahead.
you put me onto, through watching this channel for the period of time you've had it, certain things I've really latched onto. So the Walt Simonson Thor,
He's
you kind of
awesome.
put me onto that.
Oh,
I
that
really
is just
like that, and I
that is
really
one of
haven't
the best
found
comics
that
you'll ever read.
many. I really haven't found that many of them. I'm searching for
I think
more.
well they're kind of expensive, but I
Right.
think they're all collected. You know his famous run with the Beta Ray Thor on the cover. That was he wrote he Walt Simonson drew Thor earlier, and then he came back. He always said that was his favorite superheroes comic. So he came back to Thor, and now I think you picked that up. The Ragnarok. I forget if that is that
Oh, I
by
love that.
DW? Yeah, that is.
That's one of my absolute favorites. Of the latter day stuff is Ragnarok, and there's more of those I want to buy too.
Yeah, I think the first series was like 24 issues, and then the second series was 12 issues, or 12 issues and 6 issues. I
I mean,
forget.
I love that art.
That was so
I
good.
love that book. I love the art. The whole thing.
But as I said, Keith Pollard, for those of you who he drew Amazing Spider-Man and he drew Thor, I think around the same time, and that's the Thor. That's kind of when the Eternals got folded into the Marvel universe. So to me, I learned the Eternals through Keith Pollard's art before Jack Kirby. At this point in my life, I didn't I didn't know who Jack Kirby was. You know, I was a 9-year-old kid. I knew who Black Bolt was, but I didn't know. And Bob Wiak, I can never say this guy's name. Wiak, I think it's pronounced, but what a great inker he is. And then John Costanza, a workhorse letter. Gladys Wynn doesn't exist because she was a woman in comic books before 2016, and we all know that there was no women in comic books before
Right.
2016.
Right.
Yeah. So here we go. Look at this splash page. You know, just giving you a taste of things to come. There you go. Things to come. I didn't even realize I was being punny. And I always check out the Indicia. Just yeah, 1977. Man, my eyes are so bad. I always hated the spaceship. I always thought it looked like a plunger. All right, let's go to the next page because this is look at this classic Johnny Storm. And now I can't help but look at this through the eyes of that How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. Like this guy looks kind of heroic, but Johnny Storm is just a little bit bigger. You know. And now I'm one like, are they over exaggerated poses? Probably. I never noticed that stuff as a kid, but like they say, critical on Red Letter Media, your mind does. So here is what's going on here. Do you remember the story at all? I'm talking a lot.
No, I mean, again, you hit me with this for the first time in forever.
Yeah. Well, what's going on is he's designed this super race car, and Reed Richards' computers helped him design it, so it's going to be the ultimate race car. And I love like, this is a race car, but it's big enough for Lockjaw and Crystal to teleport in the back. And they're like, "We got to go. The Great Refuge is under attack." He's like, "So much for my car." They teleport out, and so much for his car. And there we go. We're in the Great Refuge. Story goes, Crystal's crying, and at this point, Crystal is with Pedro Maximoff, the Quicksilver, not Johnny Storm anymore. So just think of that. Your ex girlfriend shows up and says, "Help me save my new boyfriend." You're gonna be like, "Nah, I'm gonna drive my car." And then this is one I always said this when I was a kid. I always thought Johnny Storm had to say "Flame On," like Billy Batson had to say "Shazam." So here we go. He's flying around, and look at this. I've lately I've been on a kick of noticing the color. Look at every panel. Look, you notice how the backgrounds are all different colors.
Right.
Because I read somewhere that they said if you did it all the same color, it, your eyes would differentiate the panels. It would be kind of messy, And I agree with that because if you ever see black and white comics, it's kind of hard to differentiate. So over here we got the blue sky, green, jet black, yellow. You know, over here we just got the ground, so that works. The energy instead of the sky, whatever. Oh, here you go. Here you go. Look at this. It's
There you
Pete
go.
with
Right.
yeah, Pete with
That
your
was the ad I
address.
responded to. They got me with that ad.
I love this ad. I always love this ad.
Oh, Super Sea Monkey. This was the
Oh, super. Yeah. Oh, that's what you. That's why you only got the regular sea
I got
monkeys.
the regular right there. I went
Yeah, the
cheap.
fastest growing sea monkeys of all time. I actually got some company a couple of years ago made like action figures of these, so I had them on my shelf for a little while. Little articulated plastic sea. I love. But here's what they really look like:
Yeah.
sea monkeys. That looks nothing like a monkey. Oh, okay. Here we go. These were the Simon and Schuster of hardcover that went to the bookstores. So I had the superhero women, and I remember we used to try to see through the because there's little spaces in Red Sonja's bikini, and as a little kid, we're like, yeah, we could see things, we couldn't.
Right.
The calendar I never got, but here we go. This is the How to Draw Marvel, the fun book. Uh, you can't see, but Origins of Marvel Comics, Son of Origin. So I had these three. I had the Women of Marvel, and I don't know where they are. And then this, I just wish I got that as a kid. That would have been so good. So here we could have sent away for him. It's funny. I was looking through one of the old comics, and I actually filled out had my old address. You know. So here we go. This is a one and done villain, Thraxon. Who is he? I don't know. This is, I think, as far as I know, the only time he showed up. And Human Torch gets zapped, blasted in the fire. It gets better, this comic. Look, he throws up a force field, and here's Crystal. Maybe I'll ask you, put you on the spot. Do you remember what her powers were?
Uh, what is her name? No. Is this
Crystal.
one of the
Yeah,
She's one of the Inhumans.
yeah. She's one of the royal family, one of the cousins. Her
Uh,
power is whatever the plot requires. She could control the weather. She could shoot lightning. She could shoot fire. She's an elemental. So
so the Inhumans had their own title, and this is like a merger of Fantastic Four and Inhumans just for the annual.
no, they at this. Oh yeah, you know what? They did have their own comic. They had the George Perez comic that debuted in '76, I think. It only lasted 12 issues. So I don't know if that comic was going at the time, but the Inhumans debuted in the Fantastic Four, and they were the another Jack Kirby thing. Jack Kirby was big on the hidden cities. Keep in mind, Jack Kirby made up the Inhumans, and they live in the Great Refuge, Atalan, the hidden city that's super advanced. He also made up the Black Panther, who lives in Wakanda, the hidden city that's super advanced. It's just a Jack Kirby thing. The
So
Eternals.
the Eternals are not the same as the Inhumans. I'm asking some
No,
stupid
no, the
questions.
Inhumans. Okay,
Right.
okay. Deep dive on the Inhumans.
Okay. Sorry.
That's no, that's fine. That's what I'm showing off my geek muscles over here. So the Inhumans were they're humans, okay, and then later on. I don't think they viewed this way, but later on it was all retconned and they tied it together really well. But the Kree, the same race of Captain Marvel, they came to Earth 10,000 years ago. They saw that there was, you know, the potential for mutation, and they experimented on normal humans, and they made the Inhumans. And
Ah,
they were going to be warriors to help them fight the Skrulls, because the Skrulls could shape change. So at this point, the Skrulls had the advantage. So they were going around. They made perfect soldiers, and then the Inhumans banded together because regular humans didn't like them. They became paranoid, xenophobic people, didn't like outsiders, and then the Kree never came back. There you go. Because they say that the Kree have reached the end of their evolution. They're not going to change. The Kree are stagnant race, and they're dying out. I always found that to be fascinating, that they're dying out. So,
ah,
and what supposedly the Kree could breed with humans and whatever. So they're always like abducting us and whatever. So that's what they are. So they are offshoots. So it's just like, we got the Eternals, we got the Kree. I mean, we got the Eternals, we got the Inhumans, we got the mutants. They're all like subspecies within humanity. And they will keep in mind the Eternals were not supposed to be part of Marvel at this time. At this time, Jack Kirby had the Eternals, and it was almost like their own separate universe. But but the Inhumans proved to be popular, so they were always coming back. They were always coming back. And what they did was they they were starting to get like succumb to pollution from the civilized world. So they put up like a force field around the city, and then Maximus the Mad turned the force field like the ultimate force field, so nobody could get in and nobody could get out. So it was like, and that was like the drama. Johnny Storm was in love with Crystal, and Crystal was in love with Johnny Storm, but they were separated by this force field that like Reed Richards couldn't penetrate, but then only Lockjaw could penetrate. But he's like a dog, so he sometimes you listen, sometimes you listen. He's unreliable. And then, of course, Black Bolt told Crystal you can never leave because Black Bolt could be kind of a jerk that time. But that's what drama's all about. This panel I always remembered. So this is uh Johnny's doing his thing over here at the Inhuman City, but we got Ben, Sue, and Reed. They're in Hollywood right now. They were paid like a bunch of money because Reed needed money to do all the scientific experiments, and they're making a Fantastic Four movie. And here's the actress that's playing the Invisible Woman, and I love that. She's like, I couldn't wear anything like that, could I? Look at that costume. And then they have a 12-foot tall animatronic thing robot, and they don't show the Human Torch. And then they said, the Human Torch, that's too expensive, so we're gonna just write him out. And Reed's like,
So
how can
what you
you write
have
out?
here, what you have here is major foreshadowing,
Yeah, yeah,
decades before there was even a thought of a Fantastic Four movie.
yeah, goofing around. And you know what's funny? Real funny that you said major foreshadowing because the Fantastic Four cartoon in the '80s didn't have the Human Torch.
Really?
They had Herbie the Robot.
Wow, I don't
And
even remember that.
yeah,
Okay.
well, good for you. Good for you that you don't remember that because it infuriated me. Nobody has been done dirty like the Fantastic Four.
Oh,
You
the
know,
movies have been terrible.
yeah. Did you ever see
Terrible.
the original Roger Corman one?
No.
That's the best one because it's the most comic accurate and it's terrible.
Roger Corman made a Fantastic Four. I have
Yeah,
no.
uh, they had a time limit to make a Fantastic Four movie, so only Roger Corman out of the whole cast knew that this movie was never going to be released. So they were like, just make the movie cheap as possible because they just had to make a movie to retain the rights. So they made
Okay.
a cheap movie just to hold on to the rights, and it was never released. It was buried. So you could go online and watch it. It's
Okay.
horrible. It's
Okay.
terrible. And what gets me mad is the actors and actresses. They didn't know that it was just an underhanded deal to keep the rights. So they were really trying, given the crap that they were given. So
Right.
here we go. Here's Luigi, the director. I remember that. He's just like, "Oh, vey, what did I do?" You know, and of course, the thing robot has to go berserk. Hey guys, listening to live stream while I work. Cool. Where are you working, Eddie? What are you doing? I always like to acknowledge everybody who Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't have a lot of comments, so I could comment to everybody. So of course, the thing robot goes berserk. The movie's getting sabotaged. Things get thrown around. Look at this, and this is why I picked this comic because you're gonna laugh at this. So the Ben gets smashed into the wall, and he bashes through into the studio where the Gong Show is being filmed. So here's
Oh
Jamie
my
Foxx,
God.
J.P. Morgan, and Artie Johnson. You
Oh,
know,
that, wow.
there's
This is
Chuck Barris.
1977. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So now the Fantastic Four is on the Gong Show, and he takes the gong and beheads the robot.
That
Got
they
to fill those
really,
pages somehow. It's an annual.
it's like a time capsule.
Yep. I I was in a second grade. Dave's left. J.P. Morgan. No, J.P. Morgan, the trashy, famous person who I only know J.P. Morgan from the Gong Show and one episode of The Odd Couple.
And it was a woman.
Yeah, J.P. Morgan, and she actually got kicked off the Gong Show because the Gong Show. I love the Gong Show.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
unabashed Gong Show fan. I love the Gong
Who
Show. I
didn't love the
still
Gong
watch it.
Show?
I show
Yeah.
clips to it. My nieces and nephews, and we crack up. Uh, look up Buddy Guy on go Gong Show Buddy Guy. You're going to laugh your face off. It's the funniest thing. But J.P. Morgan was supposedly like a singer, and she did like Love Boat kind of shows.
So
But
she
she
was on
was
the Odd Couple. She was in it, right?
right,
And
happy and
so to the Odd
peppy and
Couple.
bursting with love.
Oh
Felix
my
writes a
God,
song,
yeah.
and
That's a
then she
classic
sings it
one
like
too.
all like lounge singer, and Felix gets upset.
Yes, yes. That's a great episode
Oh,
actually.
Odd Couple's my favorite sitcom of all time. Still
It's
is.
Allison's favorite.
Oh, that's right. We've talked about that a few times. Yeah,
Right.
and Artie Johnson was on Laughing, and he had that Nazi helmet. Like, very
Yeah, he was
interesting.
very funny.
And Jamie Foxx. I know of John Pierpont Morgan, the railroad, but yes, yes, this isn't. That would be really funny if they put the corpse of him on the Gong Show. It probably only would have got the ratings up. But Chuck Barris, he, he was a goofball, and the show was like a party, and it really was like a party. And they would drink, there was like rumors of like drug use,
Oh,
and everybody
that
was
show was
sleeping with
actually
everybody else.
subversive. That was a
Oh yeah, yeah.
subversive television show.
And Chuck, so like in the first couple seasons, everybody had tuxedos stuff. By the last seasons, like they had T-shirts, and you could see
Yeah.
the eyes were red, and they were all drunk and everything. So she was just drunk and took her shirt off, you know, on the camera, and they had to
Oh
censor her.
my gosh.
And
Oh
she
my
got
god.
she got
Yeah, that show was out of control.
they asked
Yeah.
her not to come back, so she actually got fired from the Gong Show. Kind of sucks that the Francis Ford. Yes, yes, and Taylor, uh, could you believe that there's a Fantastic Four movie coming out and I'm not excited? I got
There's a
but
new
it's
one?
I got time distance, but hey, comic book they could have drawn. Oh yeah, okay, J.P. Morgan. That would. Well, how about they take all of those guys like Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and make like a time displaced superhero team. Look at this head for Devil Dinosaur, Stanley Soapbox, the multiple, and here's Thor fighting hillbillies. Damn hillbillies.
The
You know
Dingaling family.
the Dingling family. You got to fight these hillbillies. I always remember
Sure.
this. Yeah, why not? Guy has a shotgun at you. God of Thunder. Got to fight the hillbillies. Those
And
damn hillbillies.
get you fruit pies.
Yeah, back in the '70s, hillbillies were a bigger perceived threat than they actually were.
Well, you had the Beverly Hillbillies, and
Yeah, and what Deliverance was big at this point, right? And so
then you had that.
everybody was afraid of hillbillies, and then those horror movies like The Last House on the Left and stuff. There's Chuck Barris over here.
Everybody was afraid of hillbillies.
So here's the thing. Those Hostess pies. Oh my God, Frank, we can't be friends. Hostess fruit pies were obscene.
Drinks.
Twinkies were delicious, but Hostess fruit pies. Oh my God, the only hillbillies would eat them, Frank. So here we got the thing over here fighting his robot, and he beats the crap out of it, and then Lockjaw comes to teleport everybody out. So now
They
he's
come
like,
back.
okay, we're gonna give you a number. Remember, it was a number from 1 to 10. So Artie Johnson
Right.
gives him a 6, and then
Right.
look J.P. Morgan definitely 8. And then the cursing 6 because she was always
Wow.
cursing, and then Jamie Foxx.
Really far.
So they only got an 18 out of 30, and they teleport away. There you go, Gong Show.
Very funny. Very
He,
funny.
he wrote the song Palisades Park. Did you know that, Chuck Barris?
I there was a book. I don't know if he authored his own book about how he was some kind of spy. Chuck
You
Barris.
don't discriminate. Okay, so you got diversity of food. That's food diversity is a diversity we don't really talk about too much these days. Very progressive of you, Frank. Thank you. Yes, A Dangerous Mind.
Oh,
Excellent movie.
okay,
Excellent
yeah.
movie.
So I
Watch
never
that
really
movie.
never saw it. I heard it was pretty wild, and he wrote a book talking about how he was actually what, a CIA operative or something.
Yeah, supposedly, according to him, he was he was a sociopath, and like he had all the traits of a serial killer. He saw his father commit suicide, and the CIA pegged him young. This is according to him. I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, of course.
And he got recruited by the CIA, and he was going on hits. So he was also the producer of the dating game. And if you
Right.
remember at the dating game, the couple would, you're going on a date to and it would be like some city in Berlin, and like big, but that was his cover because that's where he had to go assassinate somebody. So
Sure. Well, it
you'd
makes
cut to Chuck
perfect
Barris
sense.
loading a gun, killing, and the cover was
It
he was the
makes
chaperone.
it makes perfect sense that that would be his cover, and
And then if you watch the movie, they have Gene Rayburn and all these people that worked with them. They're just like, I don't know if this is true or not. It kind of
right.
makes sense. He was, and then you see him cut to the Gong Show. He was like getting paranoid through all the drug use, and the unknown comic was coming out with the bag on his head.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a great scene where he's putting that unknown comic in a headlock, and then they go behind the curtain.
Oh, I
He goes,
have to
who?
get this movie. I
He
have
goes,
to
who
watch this
effing
movie.
sent you? What do you want? What are you doing here? Like, are you spying on me? Like, why won't you show your face? And then kicks him.
This is a must view. I got to get this
Oh,
movie.
it's an excellent movie. Excellent movie. I don't think I could be a spy now, or at least a successful one. Yeah, I talk too much. Within 10 minutes, give me a Twinkie. I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything. So here's the backstory about. these are all the Inhumans. They're all freaks. And then, of course, Pedro Maximoff, the Quicksilver, is the only one who won't submit to this threat by Thraxon, the Inhuman who never showed up before, and got taken out by a being. Now, I'm not Crystal's biggest fan now because not only did she break Johnny's heart, but then she marries Maximoff. Then they have a kid together, and then she sleeps with a real estate agent when she moves to New Jersey. So she doesn't even cheat on him with another superhero. She cheats on him with a real estate agent. So
Yeah.
here they go. They're all so what she's holding them hostage, and here comes Black Bolt. There you go. There's Gene Simmons. Did you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, Gene
He
Simmons. Yeah,
based he
yeah, the
based
other
his
rock guy.
costume. He based his costume on Black Bolt.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So
Gene
many, so
Simmons
many
from Queen. The Queen's connection with Gene
right.
Simmons, by the way.
Yeah, they were all of them were from Queens. Chaim Vitz is Gene Simmons' real name. He was born in Israel, grew up in Queens.
Parents,
Excellent businessman, excellent self promoter.
I think parents escaped the Holocaust or something like that.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but it just this just, I can't even speak. This just shows you the nice folds and bolt custom. Yes, yes, yes. And I can't get my thoughts together, but just shows you the testament to like Stan, Jack Kirby, how they influence culture in ways like I'm still finding out. Like I didn't know that Gene Simmons. Well, I kind of knew that Gene Simmons, because I remember going, "Oh, look, he looks like Black Bolt." Because Kiss was a band that I hated as a kid. I think it wasn't until college when I got past the my prejudice against Kiss and started to really really like them. I mean, when you're all in a house in the Hamptons drinking and blasting party all night long, rock and roll every day, you gotta like
Right.
Kiss.
Of
It
course.
is Medusa. It always bothered me that they wore masks. They all live in the same city. And here we got Triton over here. And as a kid, I thought that meant that he weighed 3 tons, but I didn't know about the Greek god at the time. So here's Thraxon yelling at the ball, and Gorgon just bothers me now because Gorgons aren't in Greek mythology are female, but whatever at the time. This picture, I remember drawing this. I put a piece of paper over this and like tracing this over and over again. I just thought that was so cool. Oh, and here, check this out. Look at the. You see how the
Yes.
that indicates that it's a flashback. So this is all a flashback. Now, what when did you stop reading Fantastic Four? Do you have like an end time? Did you get the John Byrne run?
You know what, John? I bought. I was very young, and I bought them sporadically. I didn't. I'd have a stack of them, and I would miss issues. I would have,
Yeah.
2, 4, 6, and 8. You know, I
Back then, it was
because
hard to get a consecutive run because
right,
you had to go to the
right.
newsstands and
And what really kills me is that God only knows what happened to those comics because
oh yeah,
you
one of
know.
those stories. Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh
My
yeah.
father has a heartbreaking story. Everybody's parents went to Woodstock, and everybody's parents had Superman #1. But my father used to tell me that he goes, "Oh yeah, well, I had the first." He would say Superman #1, but he
Mhm.
meant Action Comics #1. And the reason why I believe him is he goes, "Your Uncle Frank was Superman because he was the oldest." He goes, "And your Uncle Johnny, he was that cowboy because he was the youngest, and I was the no, I he was the detective, and I got to be the cowboy." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, There was 3 stories in that Superman," and he's absolutely right. There was a Superman story,
Wow.
there was a cowboy story, and there was a detective. So how many people know that? So
Mm,
I do believe my father had Action Comics #1,
wow.
and then I tell him how much. He's like, "Don't tell me." He goes, "Your mother threw away all." He goes, "My mother threw away all those comics when I went into the Navy." He says in the basement of his building in Brooklyn, there was boxes of comics because all the kids would just go down to the basement and read and throw them in boxes. Oh my
Right.
God. Can you imagine those comics?
Oh yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
This look at this ad. What do we got here? The Fantastic Four. Oh, these were little digests. These were smaller and they were in black and white and they reprinted early comics. Same with this. These reprinted old Steve Ditko Spider-Man. And in the library, I used to go get these Mego figures. I had all of these, but Conan. I never got Thor. And the funny thing about Thor is I never saw it in the store, but I was staying at my grandparents' house and I found we went to a store and I was like, "Oh, can you get this?" My grandfather looked at me and goes, "It's for girls." Because it had long hair. It had long blonde hair. So it's for
Hippies.
girls. Yeah. He's not gonna buy his grandson a toy with a guy with long blonde hair. What are you gonna? Does it come with a brush? So here they go. Force field out here. They're fighting, and this is cool. One of her lesser known powers. Not only could she create force fields, but she could dismiss force fields. So here she is concentrating effort,
I
and then
feel
she
like
dismisses the force
I
field.
feel like it took them a while to get to some Fantastic Four action in this
Right,
end.
right.
You
This
mean
is
you had
23. We're up to
you mean
20.
you that's a long time to build up to Fantastic Four actually getting involved here.
Right. Well, it's an annual. It's twice the size of a regular comic. So we had some gang show humor. We had
Yeah,
a little bit of character development with Johnny Storm, and then
right,
we had a uh, back issue flashback. So here we go. Now we're on all cylinders. There's the
right.
Fantastic Four that we all know. Look at that panel. That is great. This word balloon bothers me. This word balloon should be down here, right, right over here. Who
Yeah,
cares
yeah,
about
it's
that?
kind of in the way.
It's kind of in the
You
way.
know, what
See,
I
he's saying
think what
flame on
hooked
again.
you as a kid, I think one of the things that hooked you on Fantastic Four was Ben Grimm.
Oh, I absolutely. Ben Grimm was my favorite. Still my
Yeah,
favorite superhero of all time. It's
and
Ben Grimm,
because
then
he was a
Superman, then
wise
Reed
guy.
Richards.
He was a wise guy. You knew that he was kind of like mistreated.
Right.
He was really the sob story in a way. I don't know if I'm putting that correctly, but he was kind of like the down, the guy who always was not treated well and
He
had
was
a
the
chip on his
outcast. He was the other. And
yeah,
what, like, I always say this, and pun intended, that the thing, Ben Grimm, is the cornerstone of the Fantastic Four. He's the heart and soul of the Fantastic Four. Now,
right,
he, I forget why I was just talking. Oh, I was talking about this with the new Teen Titans with Cyborg. He's the Pinocchio. He just wants to be a real boy. He's been hurt. First
right,
off, he was good looking. He was charismatic. He had the best shape. He was actually a pretty good student. He had everything going for him. And then he turns into the thing, and he's an outcast. So the first 12 issues or so of the Fantastic Four from like 1962, 63, he was a jerk. He was like a scary monster. And the reason
right.
why they did that, because Stan and Jack didn't know if superheroes were going to catch on again, but they were big on monster comics. So they made Ben Grimm a monster. They were hedging their bets. And
Okay,
Reed was kind of a jerky scientist. He's pretty much the same. And Sue had no personality. But then they stumbled upon this formula. It's the same thing with the Hulk. And I've always loved the Thing, because he is the guy who had everything, lost it, and then cherishes it. Like he'll say to Johnny Storm every once in a while, it's like, what's wrong with you? Like, you got stop complaining. You got the greatest life. I would kill to have what you have. And Johnny
yeah.
Storm,
He
oh,
was
I'm
he was
sorry.
just always the most interesting character I
Right,
thought.
right. He was the one, like, because when you're 9, 10 years old, the world revolves around you. And then your mom says you can't do this, or one of your friends hurts your feelings. It's devastating. Everybody hates you. You turn into
Right,
Shakespeare. Woe
right,
is
right,
me.
right.
And that's what Ben Grimm always
That's
was.
Ben Grimm, right?
That's why the X-Men, everybody loved it. That's why I have to laugh at all of these ma representation people, because Ben Grimm represented the soul. Tell me who among us did not feel like the other at some point in their life.
Sure,
Especially when you're going through puberty. That's what the X-Men were, going through changes. You didn't trust your own body. What's going on? I'm feeling things I never felt before. I'm trying to dribble a basketball, and I'm all of a sudden I'm uncoordinated, because I'm growing. That's why the X-Men never specifically had to have, you know, 19 different genders and whatever common, because being a mutant meant you felt like you were outside of society. And
right. We all
who
got
among
that.
us? Yeah, we all got that.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
sure Bill Gates
And
was made fun
you
of
had
before.
the parallel actually Ben Grimm and Wolverine.
Right.
There's a parallel there.
I always loved this panel. He flew too high, and his power went out. So here we got all the Inhumans. They're strapped into this cosmic plunger, because that's what it looks like, and it's siphoning off their Inhuman power. And he's going to use the ultimate weapon. Just such a bad comic book trope. And he's going to use his powers, and his powers aren't working. So what he does is he siphons other Inhumans' powers to get more powerful, and then this stupid plunger looking thing is going to amplify his power, and he's going to take over the world. And now he's losing his power because they're cutting off his supply. And it's funny because they describe this makes me laugh. Oh, I'll embarrass you for a second. Do you think you could describe Black Bolt's power?
Could I?
What? Yeah, nobody can.
No.
Black Bolt has whatever power that they decide Black Bolt
The trick.
has.
That was a trick question.
Yeah, it's a trick question.
Right.
Black Bolt could do whatever they wanted. He has this antenna, and they always said that he could manipulate free electrons. And Stanley always said that what does that mean? Like he didn't know what gamma energy was when he made up the Hulk. He didn't know what cosmic rays were when he did the Fantastic. He goes, it just sounded cool. But now they're saying the neuron energy of Black Bolt himself. Well, for 20 years, this guy had electron energy. Now he has neuron energy, whatever. They couldn't even keep it straight. So now they cut off his. I love this panel of Reed Richards just beating him. Chris Claremont wrote the Fantastic Four for a little while, and it's very forgettable. But however, there was one particular issue that stands out is Reed Richards goes and he starts fighting. I forget who the bad guy is, and Reed goes berserk, beating the crap out of him. Um, the bad guy starts trying to punch Reed, and it can't hurt him. It's like punching a water balloon, and Reed just goes, and Reed loses his mind, beating the crap out of, and it's not even like and he just stops for a second and he goes, "Wow, I've never really reveled in the physicality of my own abilities." And I thought that was such a cool thing because that's really take away his intelligence. All he is a guy who punches and stretches, and he can't be hurt. Have you ever played role playing games, Pete?
Have I played? I'm sorry.
Role playing games? You ever played Dungeons Dragons or anything
No.
like that? Oh,
No.
okay, but you're familiar enough to
Of
understand what I'm
course.
talking. Yeah,
Yeah.
I my friends. Next time you come to New York, join us. You'll play. I play villains vigilantes. It's Dungeons Dragons, but superheroes. And one of the superpowers is stretching powers. And if you have stretching powers, you can't be hurt by punches. You know, you just stretch, you just stretch, you just stretch. You know what I mean? So it's really really cool power. I mean, the stretching is cool, but the
Right.
defense is awesome. So here he goes. They beat the henchman Thraxon, and now they're running off because now they got to go get the Inhumans in space. So here they go. I love this. You worked in Manhattan for a while.
Right.
Just think. This building is supposed to be the Baxter Building. I think it's East 40th Street, and I think I actually worked in the real building in that address for a couple of years.
If I could just stop you
Yeah,
for
go
one
ahead,
second.
get. I'm talking too much.
One of the things I was thinking about because I've been reading Daredevil, and I started to, and now that's Hell's Kitchen and a
Yeah,
lot of New
real
York,
locations.
right? Spider Man, Queens, Forest Hills, all this Fantastic Four, Manhattan, New York. So as a kid, this is another thing I think that hooked you if you were a New York kid. I was just reading a Daredevil where he goes to there's a battle at Coney Island on the roller coaster
And
against
we've been there.
against Bullseye.
Yeah,
So right, so I think I maybe you didn't think about it much then, but now you look back on it and you go, wow, like we felt like a little bit more attached to it. I
yeah.
think because
We
you knew where these places were.
Yeah, like how fortunate to be a comic book fan and live in New York and grow up
Marvel,
in New
right?
York.
Because Marvel really based a lot of their stuff in
In
New York
in New
neighborhoods.
York, yeah, like I just moved
I,
from
I
Forest
don't think
Hills.
right. I don't think that gets talked about enough.
Yeah, that I think it was a great move because as much as Gotham City is cool, like where is it? Like what is the
Right,
climate? Like we know it's New York, but then
right,
they go to New York. Like the Teen Titans are based in New York, and then Batman is in Gotham City, and then Superman is in Metropolis. Where are these cities? Like, and they're all in the United States. Like, could the United States have three New Yorks? I don't know. So I my solution is I just don't think about it too much because it's like thinking of stretching powers. Like, shouldn't Reed Richards be covered in like stretch marks? It'd be weird looking.
right.
It's funny that I showcased a comic called Megaton Man, and in the Megaton Man comic there was the Megatropolis Quartet, and they had that must have been something. Oh yes, yes, Eddie. That yeah. Oh yeah. Before I forget, I was working in Manhattan right before the pandemic, and every day I would walk down to the subway and I would pass the Frick Museum, I think it's called,
Yeah,
and
the
that
first
was the
thing.
yeah, that's the location of Avengers Mansion.
Yeah,
That I took a couple of pictures of it. I'll post it online. I'll make a community post. But that
and
was the actual location. Yeah, Flash's city is Flash Central City.
yes,
Yeah, if Flash Frank, it's either Central City and then because I know the old Flash is Keystone City, and then when they had the Crisis on Infinite Earths, they made the twin cities of Central City and Keystone City. You know, but so
And
every
I will
city,
say, just getting to I'll touch on a New York thing for a second.
yeah, talk all you want.
Being a being a Queens kid, the talk about identifying with Spider-Man. Like
Yes,
Spider-Man was a teenage kid in Forest Hills, which was a town not too far from where I lived. That I would go through. You'd be in Forest Hills with your parents sometimes shopping or whatever, and as a kid, again, you got to put yourself in that 12-year-old brain or 11-year-old brain. You were like, "This is the coolest thing ever,
yeah.
Spider-Man. I might actually see him. He lives around here."
It's funny that because John Romita put his house in town as
Hmm.
Aunt May's house, so he drew his house.
Right,
And inside the house it looked consistent because he was drawing his house. You
right,
know,
right.
in Forest Hills. I thought that was so great. Like Doctor Strange's house was on Bleecker Street. And I
Right.
remember, I worked construction in Manhattan a lot, so I remember working facing Bleecker Street, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna walk down here after work one day and try to find Doctor Strange's house. Of
I
course,
mean,
it's
Central Park was in a
yep,
lot of these
yeah,
things.
that's where all the space aliens always land. You know,
Right.
yeah,
And like I said, the Daredevil. I was just reading
yeah.
the Frank
Me and you
Miller.
couldn't afford to live in Hell's Kitchen right now.
No, but back then it was like well,
Oh,
again,
it was Hell's Kitchen back then. It was
yeah,
bad. It
rough
was
area.
really bad. You didn't want to go back then. Like uh, out like around 85, 86. Me and my friends used to go down to the Bowery to go to CBGB, see all the punk
Right,
rock
Lower
stars.
East Side. Yeah.
Yeah, the Hellfire Club I think is in the Upper East Side. I don't think it's near Central Park. I think it's Upper East Side, and I think there's actually a real location where there really is a club. And here's a little tidbit of information: the Hellfire Club was supposed to be a sex club. So if you think about that, the Hellfire Club being the X-Men villains, that was a sex club. So think about the crap that Mastermind did to Jean Grey, and it really makes it a lot more darker. And that's Chris Claremont. He made it so little kids thought they were bad, but you read that as an adult and you're like, this is even worse. That's why I think Jean Grey went berserkowitz and turned into the Phoenix, and that's why I still think that this Phoenix Force is a bad idea. It should have been Mastermind, unlocked dark things in her. She went explosive, but her name is Phoenix, and if your name is Phoenix, you get to come back from the dead because that's your name. If you're Spider-Man, you get to have spider powers. If you're Phoenix, you get to have resurrection powers. And then for the rest of eternity, she's just Jean Grey. She gets more and more powerful, goes bad, goes berserk, explodes. X-Men have to take care of her, and then she gets reborn, and then I don't know, all this Phoenix Force, all it does is diminish the drama. I talk about this every time X-Men comes up, but and it gets me so mad that I think of it. John Byrne, who I considered a genius, didn't come up with it. So here they're going up to this space plunger, and if this ship was actually used before, and this guy he used the ship, and he's the mastermind villain.
It's even a bad color.
Purple, yeah, purple
It's just a
plunger.
bad. It's just a bad
Look,
color.
look at that. Stan Lee wishes he looked that good. Pizzazz. I told a pizzazz story when I was in Albuquerque. I dated a woman who owned a comic book store, and they for a while they were distributors in New Mexico. So they would get all the comics and send them to all the other comic book stores, and they ordered or Marvel overshipped this pizzazz. They were really pushing this pizzazz, and nobody wanted it. So she said for like 15 years she was stuck with 6 long boxes of pizzazz in in a warehouse. The father owned like at the strip mall, and
Right.
behind it there was garages, and it was just filled with comic books. She gave me so many comics, but
Wow.
somebody broke into their store and stole all their pizzazz. So they did.
Does
They
she
just went.
know? Did she ever figure out that the only reason you dated her is because she had a comic book
Well,
store?
I didn't know. That's the funny thing. I didn't know. I was actually with. I was teaching preschool at the time, and her kid was in the class, and she asked me out,
Wow.
and I was like,
Wow.
good looking ladies asking me out.
Wow.
And then I found out that she owned a comic book store. She was a chef. She knew
That's
karate. You know.
sounds like a bullshit story, but okay.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like I'm lying.
We'll go with it. All right.
Sounds like I'm lying. And
All
she
right.
she was uh
What are the odds?
What are the odds? Yeah, own the comic books. She gave me an entire run of Power Man and Iron Fist because that was a comic I never collected because I couldn't find it, and I
I
was like,
never had a
I'd
girlfriend
love
that
to
gave
get.
me a single comic book. It's just
Yeah, you got to talk to Allison.
yeah, she's useless when it comes to that.
I told her. I think she got mad at me. I told her. I said, you got to up your nerd game because you and I were
That's
talking about board games and comic books, and she just sat
right.
there like she just
Yeah,
sat there like. Mm-hmm.
no
So
interest.
here they're floating around in space. Their life support's going berserkowitz. Their ship gets captured, and who is the bad guy? The Sphinx. I love what a great design. And I always say that purple and green means destruction. I used to say purple and green meant evil, but then I'm like, oh yeah, Thor's purple and green. So if you're purple and green, it just means your power is off the scale. I love this bad guy. He is a Thanos level villain. And
I
now
was
that
just
they
going to
know,
say that to remind you of Thanos.
yeah, he's a look. Now I can't help but think about that. How to draw comics the Marvel way. Like he's got the broad shoulders, he's got the larger head and look at the widespread. He's floating on a platform. And
It's a power move. It's a power stance.
I showcased a comic. I forget what number it was. Fantastic Four 212, where the Sphinx fought Galactus. One of the best comic books of all time. And this this
Wow.
this sets up that story. So as a kid, this was what I loved. So this was 1977, and the Fantastic Four 177 came out right before this. So this kind of like doesn't fit with the continuity because Reed Richards didn't have stretching powers and blah blah blah. So there's like a little problem. So there's like a debate where this actually fits in the time, and that was a big deal back then with comic books. So this was 1977, and then that comic book was like 1983. So it took 5 years for the Sphinx's full story to be told, and that was like amazing. Comic fans, do they have that endurance or to stick with it? Because I stuck with it. I saw, the
Right.
whole reveal of who Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver's parents were. That was like a 15-year slow burn, and I loved it. So here's his origin. You know who that is? That's Moses, and
Sure.
that's Ramses the king, and Moses.
Ramses. So
And
Yul Brenner and Charlton
yeah,
Heston.
that's Yul Brenner, and that's Charlton Heston over
Charlton
here, and
Heston.
that's the magician. Remember Moses turned his staff into a serpent.
Sure, of
Well,
course.
the Sphinx turned his staff into a serpent, and Moses won. So he embarrassed Ramses. So and then we all got muscles like that.
Sure.
More muscles, candy bars too. I love all these. So Ramses
Zagna.
got pissed. Yeah, Zagnut. Ramses got pissed off at the Sphinx, and he wandered off into the desert, and he found this magic stone, and he put it on his head, and he's now super immortal, so he can't die. So that was what 5,000 years ago. He fought Nova. That Nova run, 25 issues of amazing comics. That I should bring out more Nova. That was such a good run. And anyway, so now he's hypnotizing Thraxon to capture the Inhumans because you know what this he just wants to die. He wants to die and he can't die. He's super powerful and he's tired of life. So now look at this. He just beats. Don Rickles said that Charlton Heston was Moses, as he was a Mau Mau fighter. Yeah, Don Rickles. It's over here someplace, but I got that Jimmy Olsen's pal with Don Rickles on the cover because it's Jack Kirby comics, so I have to get it. I love Don Rickles. I spent a couple. I worked overnights on standby, meaning you just have to be there in case something happens. So I watched Don Rickles videos all night long on YouTube. So his Sphinx just blowing the crap out of the Fantastic Four. Look, he's just standing there as the thing's punching him, and then he just swats Ben away. Look into space through the ship. I
Right.
forgot they were in the ship. And
There's a
then
lot
because
going on here.
yeah,
There's really a ton of action in
right.
this.
We're on page 38, and look, we had race cars, we had the Gong Show, we had the Inhumans. Now we're in space.
Moses.
Moses, we had Charlton Heston, we had Don Rickles, and so she saves them all. And then what happens because of that? That gave the Inhumans time because he forgot. Oh, he didn't forget about Crystal. Oh, he forgot about Lockjaw. That's right. He and Lockjaw went and teleported everybody out. So now we got Triton bashing him. Look at that. Wow. Medusa. I don't know if if Mr. If Mr. Hudson forgot the if. Okay. Medusa. I always like Medusa, and then Quicksilver. He's always an arrogant jerk. He's always impatient, and I like the way they describe it. He goes, "Just imagine you lived your whole life on the line at DMV because that's what life is like to me because his reflexes are so fast. Gorgon, his power is he could stomp on the ground and make shockwaves, and Sphinx don't care about that. And I love this. He just swats his arms and everybody goes scattering. That's how powerful. I want to do that someday. Get into a bar fight and just throw a punch
Sure.
and everybody goes scattering. And then this is a Black Bolt. Okay, so Black Bolt and him they lock laser beams. And over here I think they say electron blast. So they're back to electron blast. And that's of course powerful enough to take out the Sphinx. And then
Not
I
the
don't know.
neutron, not the neutron blast. The
No,
elect.
not neural. Yeah, not
They
neural
switch back to
energy. Now
electron.
it's electron energy. So I
Right.
think the editor let something slip. But this is something that Black Bolt has one of his lesser known powers. Once he like sets you
Man,
up, his master punch, nobody could resist it. So he actually knocked out the Hulk with one punch. Black Bolt, he's the most powerful next to Silver Surfer. So he's like impressive, impressive. And then I think he even says, oh no, it doesn't. So now he's fighting Black Bolt and fighting Rooney, and he's beating the Sphinx. And then the Sphinx starts to realize maybe you could actually kill me. And then, of course, Black Bolt's not going to give him what you want, and he exiles him floating into space. And there you go. They save the Fantastic Four and brings everybody back. And then I like touches like this. I'm going a little too fast, but stupid fingers. And then I'm back to the other page. I'll never do it. But I like touches like this. He's using his electron energy to melt the wall to seal it, so that the explosive decompression
right,
doesn't
right.
overpower them. I love touches like that. And now they're all making up. You know, over
Make it.
here kissing.
Yeah.
She gives Johnny Storm a peck on the cheek. All that to save his ex-girlfriend's husband, and now they're making peace. You better take care of her or you'll hear from me. And then they teleport back. Look at this. The UFO connection. I don't know what this is. Oh,
A
and Marvel
trip,
preview.
a
Okay, I
trip
thought.
into total terror.
Oh, is that what? Yeah, the trip into total terror. Yeah,
Wow.
Herb Trimpe. And then we got the Rampaging Hulk. These were Marvel magazines, so these were stole. These were stole. These were sold at like truck stops.
I was gonna say I never saw any of these ever
Yeah, they didn't
back
have
then.
them at the comic book stores because these
No.
were magazine size. These were bigger. Hi, hey Lacey, how you doing? You're on Sunday. Thanks for stopping in. Reed Richards. Why do I always say that? Stan Lee, like I said, he's always a little bit embarrassed by comic books. So he made a magazine line. So they were a little bit more suggestive, a little bit more racy. Some of them had boobies, and they would put them in like truck stops. Back then, they were called men's sweat magazines, and it was always like vigilante justice, and
Wow.
it was like the men's version of the romance novels. They would have the guy with like no shirt on and a gun fighting 800 ninjas and stuff like that. Like,
I mean, Stanley must have just kind of laid around thinking to himself, like, how, like, I'll throw anything up against the wall and see if it
yes,
sticks.
yes,
Right?
that's Stanley. There's so many lesser known creations,
Right.
binoculars, walkie talkies. There's so many. Here, I'll flip it over to my face now. Okay, there we go. There was so many lesser known Stan Lee creations that didn't work. And Stan Lee was like, "Yeah, I'm going to try everything. Throw the spaghetti in the wall, see what sticks." The
Right.
shotgun.
But he had that license almost like obviously I wouldn't say unlimited budget, but clearly he had the ability to say, you know what, let's experiment with this, see if it works. Let's experiment with
Yeah,
that, see if it works. And at the end of the month or whatever, okay, let's stick with this because it worked.
yeah, exactly. In modern Marvel, Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel comic. That comic got canceled due to low sales like 6 times, and then they just put it out again. Stan Lee would never do that. It
Right.
looks like you're floating in space. I just realized. But
That's the wall.
Stan Lee would never do that. If it didn't sell, he moved on. It didn't hurt his feelings. It was a business. And Jack Kirby said in an interview, they asked him what his job was. And he didn't say I draw comics. He didn't say I write comics. He says I sell comics. My job is to sell comics.
Well, business, it was a business.
It
I
was a
don't
business.
get I guess I'll never understand the Stanley, I'm embarrassed by comics.
Well,
I-
Truck Stop Fiction is now in those CD format audiobooks. I got Days of Future. Oh, cool. Yeah, you know what? I when I was living in Albuquerque, I was driving a lot to like San Diego to visit my friend, and I'd drive up to Seattle to visit my friend. And then when I was a school teacher in New York, I would have the summers off. I was single at the time, and I used to just drive around the country. And that's when I started to realize, like, all the truckers, they stopped from these men's sweat magazines to audio books, and you know
Right.
there was like that cheeky, dirty country singer that nobody ever heard of outside of truckers and truck stops. The guy sold like 1 million albums a year, and civilized people never heard of it. But
Yeah.
then that that's what Stan Lee was trying to tap into is like a more legitimate form of entertainment. Like, keep in mind, we have we forget in the 50s with that scare of the seduction of the innocent, that
Yes.
psychologist, what's his name, Wortham.
Comic
He
books were dangerous.
Right, he the 10-cent plague, they were called. People got out of the business. People changed their name. You know, even as a kid, I remember parents were like, "You let your son read comic books?" And
Yeah, I
my
never
father
got
was like,
that.
"Yeah, he couldn't read 3 years ago. Now he's in the top reading. All he reads is comic books. Let him read.
Now
He's
you
reading something."
mentioned, yeah, you mentioned something in another video more than once probably about how, and I can relate to this. I didn't have friends that were into comic books. I did not, at least at this in 1977, right? I mean, if I read a comic book, I would read Mad Magazine,
Oh yeah.
comic books, and other stuff. I was always a reader, but I didn't go to my buddy's house and see comic books hanging around in his room or whatever. It just wasn't something. We didn't even wasn't that you were ashamed of it. It wasn't like like something you hid, but it was not something that I knew a lot of people that were into. Were reading comic books. They just weren't. At least in my neck of the woods, you know.
I remember, like, I didn't read. It went in third grade. I went to the school where I met Allison, and I was in the bottom reading group. I couldn't read, and like, I don't blame them for trying. Yeah, don't blame them trying to make money. It's what it's all about. Keeps people employed. You can buy houses. But I couldn't read, and I associated reading with doing math. Like, in my free time, I wasn't going to sit and do math. So in my free time, I wasn't going to sit and read. That was a school activity. Reading wasn't
Uh,
a pleasurable thing. If I had free time, I was playing with my toys, or I was running around the streets. I was riding my bicycles. I was doing stuff. And then I had two friends that were into comic books, and at this time we'd start to sleep over friends' houses, and at night you'd like, yeah, I read comic books. And I couldn't read. I would look at the pictures and what's this guy's name? And they kind of made fun of me, like, you don't know that it's right there. And I'm like, I don't know. And then, because like a little bit of positive shame, that's another thing. Get me Shame is good. A little bit of shame never hurt nobody. And
Now
I
let me
learned
let
to
me
read.
ask you this question about
Sure.
this era. Did you take these books and make sure that you kind of shelved them and preserved them and kept them in order, and even as a little kid?
Look at
Because I did not. I mean, these would end up in a pile
yeah,
buried
look how beat
under.
up this is, and you tell me. Oh, here.
But that's the original. In other words, that
That's
that
that's the original. And then here's the bag. It shows you how old this is the bag that I just took it out of. So I'm getting rid of this bag. And look at this. There's a little for a little time.
wow.
I got into putting stickers on them and do it. And I quickly stopped. I think I did that for 6 months. But so this probably got bagged around 1985. When that's
Okay.
so it was 10 years later when I started to get anal retentive about my
Okay.
comics. So at
Okay.
this point, I just got them, and I had this little, like, piece of crap, uh double door sliding thing, and I literally just stuffed them there. And when you open it up, the comics would fall down. So my chair is sinking. Every once in a while, because of this channel, I'll find a comic, and I'm like, oh, this must have been an original comic. It's all beat up, and then I buy another copy. Like, that's Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man 27. That was beat up, and I bought a new copy, because to me that's the first published Frank Miller work. So I'm like, this is American history. I got to have a better copy.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
not
Right.
really. I don't need all my comic books to be in mint condition. Like this, I'm not going to buy. This Fantastic Four, I'm not going to buy another copy. It's serviceable. It's fine. It doesn't have bad creases and holes, and it's just a little, like, it's just a little worn, because, man, did I read the hell out of this comic as a kid.
Right. I just really. I mean, if I could say one thing, I mean, I would love to have held on to those comics. I couldn't even tell you when they got tossed, or we moved from Queens to Long Island at one point, and that's
Yeah.
probably what happened.
Now,
So
did your parents encourage you or discourage you to read comics?
yeah, I don't even think they knew it was kind of like Pete's reading again. It's kind of like if I wasn't reading that, I was reading something for school. So I was just a reader, and I don't think they even thought twice
Yeah.
about what I. It was
I
bad.
learned. Before
Yeah,
comic books, I couldn't
no
read.
problem at all.
Could you see the comments when they pop up? Pete, do you
Just
see
now,
comments? Yeah,
when
just
you move to
yeah. One of the guys asked me, "When are you going to charge my ring on that Green Lantern?" That's why I'm showing it.
oh, okay.
So you can't see the comments at all, huh? Just me. I don't know how this
Oh,
thing works.
can I see? Yeah, I saw the comments, but like you said, they fade away.
Yeah, they fade away if I don't acknowledge them. So I'm just
Yeah,
showing off some of the trinkets behind me. I
yeah.
got the Enterprise. There's the Enterprise.
Now I could say that I'm one of the few people that have actually visited the basement.
Yeah, you, you
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 know,
saw you saw it when I first
I
started,
saw it
and then you saw
in
the
its develop
complete project.
in its
Yeah,
development stages, and it's an impressive place.
yeah.
The lair,
There's the Wonder Woman brace, the Borg cube.
yeah, pretty cool.
These are the Watchmen pins that came out with the Watchmen. That's the Jim Lee whatever. I remember the Marvel magazines being everywhere in the Boston area. Not only
Oh,
some
that's
of them were good,
interesting.
most of them were good, but I didn't get them because I didn't see them in my local stores. I could only go to the couple of comic book stores or stationery stores that were on foot on the way to school. I didn't have access to
Right,
cars and stuff. And by the
right.
time I started to drive, the magazine era was over. So I'm experiencing a lot of these magazines for the first time. And if you're interested, there's I showcased a video, probably one of my first 5 videos. It's just a box of Marvel magazines, and I honestly don't remember where they came from. And it's these old, and I didn't even get around to read them yet. But maybe I should show you. It's in Marvel. Maybe I'll make another playlist of just magazines, so make it easier to find. But they're so good. But they were written to an older audience, like the Savage Sword of Conan. They were bloody. They were more violent than the regular Marvel comic. The
Right.
Marvel magazines were different. Like right over here, uh, can I
And
show it?
you think you
At the
could?
bottom over here, this is all Marvel magazines that I got to get to. This is like Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, and so this is my stack of comics that I'm reading. It's just getting bigger and bigger. This is my stack of comics that I'm showcasing. I got to stop buying back issues because I still have the spinner rack full of comics that I didn't even read yet, and then I got 22 more boxes back there. Enough's enough.
No
I might have
comment.
to. I might have to buy a new boiler for my house, so I got to stop buying back.
Break into your comic book budget.
Oh no, how can my wife? I always joke she'll be selling my comics after I'm dead. Her and her new boyfriend will be on a yacht. Yeah. So there was one thing. Yeah, I'm too easily distracted. There was one thing I wanted to say, but now I forget what I was going to say. Oh well. Oh well. So did you have fun? Tales of the Zombie. Tales of the Zombie is the only Marvel magazine I do not have any issues of. That's I'll be looking at Tales. I just got Marvel Vampire Tales #1, and I did a showcase on that because I was really surprised because that had Mortimer Winslow, who did like Archie comics, and he did like a kind of gruesome vampire story, and I was really surprised. Mortimer Winslow does the art for those Spidey Super Stories, which are co-produced by the Electric Company. So to see him do a vampire story, really, really, I thought that was so cool.
I'd like to get more into horror comics. I never really read a lot of horror comics. That's something. And Conan. Never
Yeah,
read Conan.
I never read horror, and I never read Conan as a kid, and and I never read the westerns as a kid. Comic
Now
books,
that
superheroes.
comment I couldn't even read because it came and went so quickly. Can
It
you
said
still?
maybe a UFO will crash and distort time, so I'll have more time to read all this stuff. That's what I need. That's what I need. I just came off as in my business. You get furloughed depending upon how much work there is. So this year it's 10 weeks furlough. Last year was 8 weeks furlough. So I just did 7 weeks furlough, and everybody at work was like, "Oh man, I feel so bad for you." And I'm like, "What are you kidding? It was great." I sat in my basement. I read comic books all day long. My wife works from home, so she was like, "Go downstairs, read comic books." I'm still working. It was
And you had
awesome.
the holiday. It was the holidays, right? You were off during,
Yeah,
right?
I always request December because my birthday, my anniversary, Christmas.
Right.
So I try to
Yeah.
take
Right.
December. Plus, who wants to go to work in the snow? And then they put me out all of January. So all of December, all of January, I was out. I had friends coming over playing games, playing War of the Ring. 6 hour board game, making food, cooking burgers on the grill, coming down, serving food. Like that game takes so long that it would be if my friend's turn, I'd go upstairs and cook something. Matter of fact, Dave, who's in the first comments, he was one of the people that played War of the Rings with me. Didn't cook him burgers. Now I feel bad. Now I got to cook him burgers. Ah, But
All right,
anyway,
listen, this was really great.
yeah, it was fun.
I I
I
hope to
I
do.
was a
I'd
little.
like to do it again.
Yeah, sure. I think it's fun because sometimes I feel like I just repeat myself.
Well, if you give me more prep time next time,
Yeah,
like if
yeah,
you say, "Gee, let's do this," you literally gave me 5 minutes. Why don't we do this book? Okay,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
remember, remember
Come
this
up
book you haven't
whatever
seen
you
since
want to
you
do
were
next time.
12. You saw this book when you were 12. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that I literally haven't looked at this since the '90s.
Right, right.
It all comes back to I must have read that comic over and over and over again. Well, if you got an idea for another video, we'll do it. Yeah, we'll do it again. It's fun. I'd like to talk. That's what this channel's supposed to be: is me talking to people about comic books. You know, I didn't envision I'd ever have like over 400 subscribers. I was going to give up around 50, 60 subscribers because I'm like, I'm getting 2 views a
Well,
video, and that's probably me checking to see if I didn't curse or something.
listen, I remember a conversation that you and I had in my house where you were talking about making a channel.
Yeah, I
That
couldn't do
once
it
I
until
get
I.
we're moving, you were moving from Queens to where you went,
Yeah,
and you buying a house and so on. And you said, my idea is once I get settled in there and I get all my comics out of storage, I want to have a YouTube channel.
yeah,
And
and I
you were
just want
kind
to
of
talk
in the
because I
thinking stages.
because I was like I wanted to talk about comics. I'm like I don't know anybody out there, so my comic book friends they they got kids moved all out of the state, so I'm like comic books are hot right now. I want to talk about comics, and I didn't see anybody doing what I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, this will be my niche. Just take out a comic book. And it was originally supposed to be 10 minutes, but I can't stop talking. So now they're like 20, 30 minutes. Because I read somewhere that a 10-minute video on YouTube is the ideal. That's what YouTube wants. You'll get promoted faster. So I
Right,
was
because
gonna be like
you got
10 minutes.
limited attention spans.
Yeah, my
But
first
I'll be
my,
honest, and this isn't me, kissing your butt here, but honestly, I look at them and read them differently now after watching your channel because I said, oh, I've learned like a little bit more critical eye or things I'm picking up that I didn't ordinarily pick up, and
me
that's
too.
kind of the
Because
cool thing
I'm
about
not
it.
I'm not some of these I haven't read since I was 12, 13 years old, and now I'm reading them like I was a school teacher at one point in my life, so like I'm trying to use like all my life experiences to like talk about this, and then you'd be surprised as you flip it through stuff when you're looking through it to talk to other people about it. You're reading. I'm not reading it just to enjoy the comic. I'm looking at it to like, oh, look at this, look at that, and then
And
because
that's
of
what
this,
I
I've
was
been, I've
doing
been listening
when I
to a
was
lot of
reading
people's
this.
interviews, and so you get experience.
Reading Daredevil here for the last day or so, thinking we were going to discuss Daredevil, and again, I'm not holding a grudge about it, but I did do some, I prepped a
We'll
little
talk
bit.
about Daredevil. Let's talk about Daredevil.
I
Break
told
out your Daredevil.
I told Allison, well, we're going to wrap this up, I guess, pretty soon. But I was reading. I have notes.
Oh no, now I feel bad.
Okay,
Next
volume one.
Wednesday. How about next Wednesday? We'll do it again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah, absolutely.
Next
And
Wednesday, you do the talking.
and it is. But what I was doing, like you were saying, is not a lot of notes, but you start to look at stuff like splash pages a little closer, and I'm like, wow, that is amazing. And I'll tell you something else that I discovered right off the bat. When you buy a collected, guess what you don't get?
You don't
What
get the
don't
letters
you
page. You don't get the ads. You you,
Right, but what
you,
else don't you get? You don't get the indicia.
you don't get. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, yeah. You get on the back cover. Is there like a trade edition on the back bottom? I'm trying.
Collecting Daredevil, actually this one's got Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man 27 and 28
Yeah,
because Frank Miller took took the book there, Daredevil, and then they gave him
yeah.
Daredevil.
That was the first time he did a Marvel work. I was just talking about that. I think
But I
that's
got a lot of things. I got a lot to discuss on this. So
all
maybe
right. We'll do it next
we'll
Wednesday.
do this next
Well,
week. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Uh, and
that's one of
I
my
could have.
favorites.
Yeah, that is a
That
great
Daredevil,
comic.
that run, and Frank Miller, and what got me back into comics probably was the Dark Knight, Dark Knight Returns, and that's when I became aware of Frank Miller, and then went back and Daredevil and so on. So that was kind of like stage two of me getting back into comics, and it's probably a pretty common story, and I'm not breaking ground here, but the the Dark Knight Returns was just groundbreaking, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's what got a lot of people turned around back into comics.
that came out, I think, around the same exact time as the Watchmen, if I remember correctly. And I know I got to be misremembering. Somebody will correct me, but I remember seeing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 with the Watchmen, with Dark Knight Returns, all in the comic book store at the same time.
Wow,
So
wow.
I'm not going to say it came out on the same day or the same week, but maybe
That
like
that's
the
an
3 month
amazing
period.
that's an amazing period of time.
Yeah,
If that's let's
still
face
kicking
it.
myself that I never got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. I never got it. I was like outraged by it when it came out. They're making fun of comic books, and this is serious. So
Right, right,
I
right.
never got it. But yeah,
Well, it's like those Star Wars movies that don't exist.
this
The
don't.
same kind of
There's only
right.
three. There's only
No,
three.
I realize that. Yeah.
Uh, I definitely think, like, dude, before Frank Miller's Dark Knight and before the Watchmen, comic books were different. That was like a watershed. That's like the ACDC, not ACDC, ADBC of comic books. Before Watchmen, was a different period. That's a definitive line through
Well,
through
you
through comic book.
deconstruct the superhero, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's done more harm than good. Because
Agreed.
now,
Agreed.
it was great. It was groundbreaking, but you know, I want like Superman to land and everybody
Well,
like,
it's like
yeah,
anything.
Superman.
It's like anything else. They beat it into the ground. They
Yeah.
took it too far. Then you get this boys, which we've discussed, and again, we don't have to get
Oh,
into it.
Lacey's reading Swamp Thing. Which Swamp Thing are you reading, Lacey? Swamp Thing is something about Swamp Thing. Pete, have you read Swamp Thing?
Yeah,
Oh,
Alan Moore, the Alan Moore Swamp Thing. Yeah,
yeah. Something about Swamp Thing brings out the best. Even and that poor Martin Pascal. He wrote Swamp Thing before Alan Moore. And guy just he just gets overshadowed. You know what I'm reading right now? I'll reach over at the moment. I'm reading these Gargoyles comics. Uh, I got them on eBay, starting at the beginning as always. Are you reading Volume 1 with the Len Wein, Bernie Wrightson, or are you reading the Saga of Swamp Thing with Martin Pascal and I think Gary Leach? I think, but I'm reading these Gargoyles,
yeah,
and
that's something I'm completely unfamiliar with.
yeah. Do you remember
I mean,
the TV
I've
show?
watched your videos. I don't know anything about them. I've never.
Oh, there were TV shows in the late '90s, cartoons. Volume 1. Okay, okay. Like, what do you think? They're good stuff, aren't they? I love Swamp Thing, but Martin Pascal wrote. If we're talking about the same Swamp Thing, Martin Pascal, but he wrote those Gargoyles, and I don't remember the cartoon being as like adult in the best sense of the word. Like one of the issues they they go to a nightclub and that they're looking for like, yeah, he's great. Okay, I learned some knots in playing Atari. The only comic related thing current. Okay, Atari 2000. Oh, geez, I remember that with Venture. I used to play Venture. But anyway, in this Gargoyles comics, they're going to a nightclub that is clearly now I can't remember, but what's the nightclub in Manhattan that's an old deconsecrated church and it became a goth club? The
Oh,
Limelight, right?
yeah, it used to be called something else, but yeah.
Yeah, and they're calling it sacrilege, and they're going there, and these guys are just actively recruiting like troubled girls, you know, and they find one girl and they're talking to her, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't live with my family, I ran away," and they just freaking kidnap her and experiment, and they basically turn her into a vampire, and they send a vampire out to fight the gargoyles, and she like, "I don't want to do this, but I have to, like I'm programmed to eat vampire blood and whatever," and the vampires just restrain her until the sun comes up, so they turn into stone, and then she burns into ash. I'm like, wow, that was I should showcase that comic. It was like, like, ooh, like this is not for kids. I thought it was like a little scary. Like, you know, human
Right.
trafficking. Yeah, I don't know, but Martin Pascal. And then now I'm reading the new Gargoyles comic that's written by the guy who made the cartoon, and it's awful. I read the first 2 issues. I showcased it. I did a comparison of the Marvel one and the new one, and the new one is just awful. The art
Well, what's
sucks.
interesting about that is that awful doesn't prevent you from buying more. That's
Well,
fascinating.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Well,
fascinated by that. You know, if I buy a CD by a new band and it's awful, I don't return
I'm like
generally.
with bands. If I get an awful CD, I won't buy all of their stuff. But comic books, it's like $2 a comic. I don't know.
Okay.
But
Listen. I'm not here to psychoanalyze you. I just think I get a kick out of some of these videos where you go, look how bad this is. Oh, by the way, I bought this one, this one, this one, and this one.
yeah, yeah. I got a problem.
Here's the next 15. Oh,
Here's something that's awful.
okay.
Uh,
More.
Atlas Comics. I'm gonna show. I realize I haven't showcased or talked about Atlas Comics. It was a comic company founded by a guy who left Marvel in a huff to try to put Marvel out of business, and they lasted 11 months. But when that redhead vampire threw up blood in the movie, I thought you. What movie are you talking about?
She
What
simply
movie?
drank too much.
Uh, little kids turn. Oh yeah, why? Whatever. I was gonna say something I shouldn't have said. But Lacey, yeah, I know. If you're a comic book collector, you're kind of an OCD compulsive person. I say anal retentive because that's one of my pet peeves when people say OCD when they're not. I'm not OCD. I'm anal retentive. Oh, Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's a great movie. I just rewatched that lately. I saw that in the movies. I was good.
So did I. Yeah.
I remember my father said, "Why is
Gary
there so
Oldman.
much sex in it?" I'm like, "Dad, have you read that? Have you read Dracula?"
That's the Gary Oldman
Yeah, Gary Oldman.
Dracula.
Yeah,
That was
yeah, that was a
creepy. That was
good
a
movie.
creepy one.
Yeah,
No,
that was
no,
the first time I realized Keanu Reeves can't act. I still like him, but he can't act.
but nothing beats, to me it's Christopher Lee. It's that's Dracula,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
original Hammer horror Draculas. That's
D-
what I'm into.
I know you enjoyed the Wolf and Batsy comic.
I did. I thought that
Yeah,
was great. I want to get
Brian.
more.
I when I that was I just get every. I'm German. We are not odd. We are efficient. Okay, I like that.
I like
But
that.
Brian, I just backed everything by Alterna. Even if I don't like it, it's only $1.50. So and I get because I just want to support the company. I like Pete. I like the Demeter chap. Yeah, yeah, he eats the crew. Yeah, Christopher Lee. You getting a thumbs up for Christopher Lee? Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that Demeter, the boat shows up, everybody's dead. Wow, old should have been OCD. Yeah, all right, a lot of comments, but so I got Wolf and Betsy sight unseen. I didn't know anything about it, and I really liked it. And I don't know about you guys, but when I really like a comic, I put it right on the front. I want to read it while I'm excited. Why wait? I used to put all the stuff that I liked on the back of the stuff, and then I was like, oh, I forgot about this. So, and then I'm like, I'm gonna die, and I'm never gonna read the good comics. So I put all the good comics on the top. And I loved it, and I showcased it the next day. And Brian Bow, the creator, the artist writer of that, he just did two wonderful comments today about that, how to draw comics the Marvel way. The guy's a great guy, and he's been talking to me about Hammer films, stuff that I grew up watching with my dad, Christopher Lee, and I was about to say Grand Moff Tarkin, Christopher Lee, and Wolf and Batsy is a fun comic. Why can't I think of the Saruman? Why can't I think of his name? The actor who played Saruman in the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, Peter Cushing.
That's good. Why can't I think of it? But him, he played Dracula.
You talking about
Peter
Cushing?
Peter Cushing and
Cushing.
Christopher Lee.
So they
Yeah,
were a pair in all those horror in all
yeah.
those
I'm getting them mixed up.
horror.
I just realized I mixed them up.
Yeah.
But I watched all those movies as a kid with Vincent Price, and I loved them all. But this guy, as much as I could talk about comics, as much as you could talk about heavy metal, Brian Bow could talk about horror movies, and like he. Now I feel like I got to go out and watch all these movies now. So I got this big TV and chairs over here. That's what I'm doing. I'm watching horror movies from the 60s and 70s. Like everybody at work is.
Right up my alley. Absolutely right up my alley.
Oh,
Some of
you're
them
a horror movie guy too. Everybody
I
at
love
work
them.
is talking about uh, and I'm sure it's a good show. That new Sylvester Stallone, Tulsa King, and
I haven't seen it. I've not seen
and
it.
what's the other one?
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you in horror esque. If you get HBO Max, this new show, The Last of Us.
Oh yeah, that's everybody's talking about that too.
Wow, I'm very impressed. Excellent. It's got a Walking Dead vibe, but
Yeah, it's based on that video game.
right, which I didn't know. I mean,
Yeah,
finding out about this,
I
but
yeah
very well done.
I have a
The monsters, the what they turn into, and so on.
like
It's
mushroom
special.
zombies, right?
It's really, yeah, but it's even goes beyond that. It's really well done, and they're really freaking creepy, and
My
it's
friend
just
Jeff that you met, we gave he was into that game. He talked about that a lot.
oh, is that
He's
right?
he's always trying to like evangelize me to get into video games, but I know me. If I play video games, I'm getting divorced and I'm getting
Yeah,
fired because I'll
yeah.
I'll never stop.
My
So
my
I'll have
son.
to play from the beginning. I'll have to do all the side quests.
Yeah.
I'll play
My,
one game until I beat everything about it.
I don't know where you get that time. I don't have
Yeah,
that
I
time.
won't be able to do it. The only video game I play, and you see it in the background of all my videos, I play Civilization 4. I read comics, I play that. The music soothes me. I like the long projects. I play the marathon game, so it'll take like a month to play one game. I just find it relaxing. My wife laughs at me because I play the same game for years.
So that's a PC game.
Yes, yes, yes. So I'm here, I'm showing it'll be here on my PC.
Yeah, yeah, you see it all the time. It's actually always in the
Yeah,
background.
yeah, it's always in the background. So so that's always running in the background while I'm in. Oh, here's my iPad. This like I'll look up comics like I'll type with one hand. I'm over here typing with one hand, holding the phone. When I realize, oh, I think I messed up on and I don't want to start the video over. So like sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, it was John Buscema, not Jack Kirby. So people think I know what I'm talking about. Lacey Lee said she wanted to talk about the Captain America shield, and then Lacey, if you're still there, how about that? The original Captain America shield, and then underneath it, that's the Nick Fury gun. Here, I might as well do a little tour of all this nonsense. Here, I'll do this. So over here, I got Stormbreaker. Here's the Lords of Vegas game that you played.
I love that game.
That's on Kickstarter right now. If you want it, it's like $60. Magneto helmet.
I think I'm going to do that. Yeah.
I remember I showed my niece. She was like 9 years old. This Magneto. She goes, Uncle John, if you wore that outside, you'd be the coolest guy. I'm like, yes. The original Green Lantern. It's supposed to light up when you put the ring, but the battery's dead. And look at the paint chipping. So I got to match this color and fix it up. This is the Nick Fury needle gun and
I like that.
shield. These are this came out in they were promos that came out with the Watchmen. So these came out in what 85 when the Watchmen came out. I've had these forever. I got DC used to do a DC props. It was called, and every once in a while, I don't know what happened to it, but this is the Wonder Woman tiara with here's the lasso. This this is believe it or not for a board game. This is Star Trek X-wing. This is the Borg cube.
I was going to
This,
say that's the board, right? Yeah.
yeah, and this bothers me because they really messed up an opportunity. They should have made this open up so that you could actually store the game in there. So I'm actually thinking of like getting a little Dremel and cutting this open and making it into not just a game piece but also a storage solution. Over here we have the mother box. But where's my bat knife? Is the mother box. I'll put that up here. And over here, if I could open this up with one hand. Here's another Borg. This is a Borg Scout Cube. Here's another Green Lantern Cube. Look at this Planet Krypton. These are prop Green Lantern rings. This is the Infinity Gauntlet.
I mean, who doesn't have one of those hanging around?
Thor hammer.
Yeah. I mean,
Starro.
everybody's got this hanging around in their house.
Here's my spear. This is my favorite, though, the Excalibur sword, a prop sword from the movie Excalibur, the John Borman film. And this I can't open one-handed. Here. Oh, that's why. The Eye of Agamotto. Yeah, I'm out of my mind. I got a whole bunch. These are all board games over here.
Now, look, John, there's got to be a wrap for me, my friend.
Yeah, I got to go to bed. I got to go to bed. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Thanks
But
for
listen,
coming. I'm sorry.
we had
Sorry
plenty
I
of
changed it
people.
on you in the last minute, but yeah, I'm definitely ADHD. I'm like, oh, I got a new idea. I have to act upon it. So how about next Wednesday? You got the
I'm
floor. We'll
in.
talk about Daredevil. Give you more
I'm
time to
in.
prepare.
Okay.
You know what? If you want to send me a message of which comics, I'll pull them all out. So I'll actually
Yeah.
show the actual
All right. Yeah.
comics.
Good. All right.
Okay.
We'll prep. We'll do show prep.
Yeah, we'll do show prep. That's something I'm not good at preparing. All right. Thanks a lot. This was fun.
All
This
right.
went a lot better than I thought, Pete. Thank you.
Yeah, and we had a couple of people join in. We
Yeah, a
had
couple
people
of
join
people.
in, which is
And if other people, if you got to wear pants. I'm trusting you, Pete, that you're wearing
yeah.
pants. And we'll okay. No, this almost became a different kind of show. And then we'll try to keep it as family friendly as possible. I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. But if other people want to, man, this mother box is not stopping. All right. I'll see you guys
All
tomorrow. I
right.
got to
Have a
go to
good
bed.
night. All
All
right,
right, bye
see
bye,
ya.
everybody. Thank you
Bye.
for coming. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys. It's a lot of fun. This is exactly what I want. I want to talk comics with people. So thanks a lot. If anybody else wants to come, message me at jlongbox at yahoo.com. We'll talk about what you want to do because let's face it, some people shouldn't be on TV, you know? All right. Thanks a lot, Frank.
All
All
right,
right.
see ya.
TV, like this is TV, but you know what I'm talking about. All right. Bye bye.
All right.